Forklift equipment must be trained and authorized by the company. Once you're trained, evaluated, certified, and authorized, the rest is up to you. You're expected to have the maturity and responsibility to operate this equipment efficiently and safely.
Yes.
Again, we can't cover every forklift safety rule, but let's explain some basic safe operating rules to provide the basics upon which to build a professional understanding of forklifts and forklift safety rules. Always follow your company's forklift operating procedures, policies, and rules. Speeding. Let's begin with the most common hazard, that's speeding on forklifts. Forklifts are designed for operation at the speed of a person walking at a normal pace. You don't have speedometers on forklift equipment, but approximately 5 miles per hour is the maximum speed. You have to use your judgment on proper speed because in some cases, such as when turning or operating near pedestrians, 5 miles per hour may be too fast.
Yeah.
It's okay to work hard and not waste time, but when you're operating forklifts, safety is the most important part of your responsibility.
Main objective, safety first, safety last.
Riders.
Right.
Next, riders. Absolutely no riders allowed on forklift equipment. That includes riding near the operator, on the rear, sides, and certainly not on the forks or on a pallet placed on the forks. If you must elevate a person using the forklift, a proper platform must be used. The minimum safety requirement is the platform must be secured to the mast of the vehicle to keep it from falling or sliding off the forks. The platform must have adequate flooring for good footing and must have 42-inch high guardrails and mid-rails. Some regulatory agencies require a 7-foot high protective guard between the person on the platform and the mast to prevent a person's hand or other body parts being crushed by the mast as it raises and lowers. When anyone is elevated on a platform, the forklift operator must remain at the controls whether the motor is running or not. Seatbelts and turnovers. Forklift manufacturers are not required to install seatbelts on forklift equipment. However, if seatbelts are installed, your company may require you to wear seatbelts. While we're on this subject, let's take a couple of seconds to explain some safety action that the Industrial Truck Association recommends if you are involved in a forklift turnover. It's up to your company to establish a policy relating to the action that you should take to protect yourself in case this occurs. The ITA states that studies on forklift turnovers usually result in minor injuries if the forklift operator stays with the vehicle instead of jumping off. The normal tendency is for a person to jump downward so the driver lands on the floor or ground, usually directly in the path of the overhead guard. In a tip-over of a sit-down truck, the operator should lean away from the direction of fall to minimize injury. The most common result in a tip-over, where the operator jumps out, is a crushing injury to the head, neck, or back where the overhead guard strikes the operator. 42% of forklift fatalities are caused by the operator trying to jump from a tipping vehicle. To keep this from happening to you, always remember to keep the load as low as possible and stay with the vehicle if it tips over. Wearing your seatbelt is the best safety measure. On the other hand, in stand-up ladder trucks, the truck operator can simply step backwards, perpendicular to the direction of fall, to minimize the potential for injury. Raised loads. Driving forklifts with raised loads is unsafe, as the center of gravity of the forklift and load changes as you move. When traveling with a load, keep the load as close to the floor surface as possible, which means the forks are raised about 2 to 6 inches off the floor. This prevents the forks from hitting the floor. Of course, if the floor surface is slightly bumpy, 4 to 6 inches off the floor surface may be preferred. In this position, the forks and mast should be tilted back slightly to help stabilize the load toward the mast and a better center of gravity. However, when you stop, and are ready to elevate the load, move the mast back to the vertical or straight position. It's hazardous to raise a load when the mast is tilted to the rear or forward, since this can disrupt the longitudinal stability of the truck. Never leave a forklift unattended with a raised load. Of course, never allow anyone to walk under a raised load. Keep pedestrians away when you have a raised load. When you have a person raised to the platform, it is recommended that pedestrians stay 1 foot away from the cage for every foot the cage is raised. This means if a person is raised 10 feet, pedestrians should stay at least 10 feet away from the raised platform. When raising a load, such as positioning the load into a rack or storage space, think about the overhead. Will the load hit a sprinkler pipe or other object? Broken doorways, lights, and other objects are a result of equipment operators not watching where they are moving with a raised load. The red light should go on any time when you're raising a load, and remember that raised loads should not be tilted forward, except when you're over a rack or tier ready to deposit the load. While we're talking about maneuvering loads, if the load you're carrying is too high and blocks your vision, drive in reverse. Always look in the direction you're traveling. Many accidents have occurred because equipment operators weren't watching where they were going. Forks should always be placed under the load as far as possible and never lift a load with one fork. Steering and operating surfaces. In tight spaces, watch out for the rear end swing. The rear tires are your steering tires, and it's quite easy to bump into walls, doors, and people if you're not watching the rear end swing. Be particularly careful when maneuvering in congested or tight spaces. The vast majority of property damage by forklift operators is caused by inattention to the rear end swing. Keep your arms, legs, head, and other body parts inside the running lines of the vehicle. This protects the operator from injury, especially when passing other forklifts and when maneuvering near storage racks and other materials. Never try to pass or overtake another forklift traveling in the same direction. Drive with both hands on the steering wheel, and of course, horseplay is prohibited. Attachments to the steering wheel, such as spinner knobs, are prohibited. Never operate your equipment with wet or greasy hands. Naturally, floor surfaces should be clean, but if you encounter wet or damp areas, always slow down. Report any grease or hydraulic fluid leaks so the floor surface can be clean. If you operate forklifts over railroad tracks, always cross the railroad tracks in a diagonal position. This is the most stable position when crossing railroad tracks. Forklifts with solid type tires may only be operated on asphalt or concrete surfaces. Forklifts with pneumatic type tires may be operated only on asphalt, concrete, or improved surfaces such as gravel roadways. If forklifts must be driven on public highways, such as crossing from one location to another across the street, follow your company's policies and procedures while using extreme caution. Keep in mind that you're operating a forklift, which has a different steering system than automobiles. Many operators get confused in emergencies because of rear wheel steering and the vehicle being powered by the front wheels. Training and experience are the keys to safe steering of forklift equipment. Docks and ramps. On loading docks, keep forklifts away from the edge of loading docks. A slight miscalculation can become a nasty accident. Another good rule around loading docks is to always be sure trailer wheels are chocked and the truck is properly braked. If the trailer is disconnected from the truck, you may use a stabilizing jack to prevent the forklift from overturning the trailer. Dock plates provide a smooth surface over which to enter trucks and trailers. Make sure the dock plate is in good condition and is properly placed between the trailer and dock to prevent movement of the dock plate. The lip of the dock plate must be fully seated onto the trailer bed. You should have good lighting inside trailers and trucks so you can see what you're doing. On ramps, the forklift safety rule is very simple. Keep the load upgrade when going up or down a ramp. Drive up, back down is the best advice. If you're using a ramp onto a trailer, the weight of the ramp must be on the trailer bed and the bottom base plate of the ramp on the ground. Operators should maintain a safe distance from the edge of the ramp and drive at a creep speed. Of course, never overload any ramp or dock plate, so that means you should know the safe capacity of the ramp that includes the weight of the forklift and the load. Braking and parking. Okay, everyone is driving at a safe speed, watching where they're going, paying attention to others in the area, exercising caution when loading or unloading trailers and trucks. Now it's time to stop and park your vehicle. Basically, anytime you stop and get off your vehicle, the forks must be on the floor and the parking brake engaged and set. That's a minimum requirement. Forks must be on the floor and the parking brake set. If you're going to be away from your vehicle more than 25 feet, shut off the motor. Some companies prefer the key to be removed as well to prevent unauthorized persons from operating the equipment. Naturally, try to park the vehicle in such a manner as to keep the forks from becoming tripping hazards. Don't lock valves or exit doors with your forklift or materials. Exit doors and electrical panels must remain unblocked at all times. All the things we've just talked about are nothing more than common sense and your good judgment. You're professionals. With experience and knowledge, all you have to do is apply basic safety to your daily operations and work habits, and you'll be on your way to better efficiency, productivity, and safety. Pedestrians. Forklift operators will tell you that one of their major complaints is pedestrians. Pedestrians don't pay attention to forklift operators. They walk out in front of forklifts and in general are safety hazards to forklift operations. It's not the fault of the forklift operators. Of course, these things happen, and people who work around or near forklifts but are not forklift operators should be trained also. They should be made aware that forklifts are noisy, and often operators can't hear pedestrians walking nearby. Pedestrians have safety responsibilities as well, and this means paying attention to where you walk and being on the lookout for forklifts. Just as when you're operating a motor vehicle, pedestrians should be given the right-of-way. If someone walks in front of you, stop and allow them to pass. Sound horns around corners and aisleways. Operators should never drive toward any person who is in front of a fixed object or wall. Operators should always look in the direction of travel. If the road obstructs your view, drive backwards. Operators entering the building or nearing a blind corner must make their approach at reduced speed and sound the horn. Safety is a team effort, and it requires both the forklift operator and pedestrians to make safety a reality.